Most children don't have an attitude problem. They have an emotion that they don't know how to communicate. And most parents don't have a defiant child, they have a reaction that's making it worse. Today I want to show you the difference between reacting and reading emotions, and why teaching your child to read their emotions early is one of the most powerful things you can do for their future. Here's a framework that you can use that will change how you see every emotional experience your child has moving forward. Every emotion is either a signal or a noise. A signal carries real information. It's pointing at something true, like a boundary being crossed, a value being violated, a need that isn't being met, something that genuinely requires your attention. Noise is different. Noise is a story your mind creates around the emotion, the illusions, the what-ifs that spiral into conclusions that were never real to begin with. And here's where it gets challenging. Both signals and noise can come from the outside, from other people, from media, from institutions, from environments that trigger emotional responses that have nothing to do with what's actually happening in front of you in real time. The skill, and it is a skill, is learning to distinguish one from the other, because a child who can't tell the difference will spend their life reacting to static. A few years ago, I was in a meeting with my business partner, and we were disagreeing about something work-related, and I noticed I was getting angry. Now, I've trained my awareness for a long time, so instead of following the anger, I read it. What I found underneath surprised me. It wasn't about the disagreement at all. It was pride. I had an old program running, one that I have adopted from sports, of never give up. Now in athletics, that program did serve me well. It built resilience, determination, and it got me results. But that program had been quietly applied to everything else in my life. Arguments with people I love, disagreements with my business partners or clients, moments where holding my position was no longer strength, it was stubbornness. So the anger was noise on the surface, but underneath the noise was a real signal. The signal was, your pride is blocking a solution right now. That moment I read that signal clearly, everything shifted. I gave up my position, admitted I wasn't seeing the full picture, and we moved together toward a solution. Now, that never would have happened if I just followed the reaction. And I see this pattern a lot in almost every client that I work with. The emotion on the surface is rarely the whole story. There's almost always a signal underneath the noise, and if you learn how to look for it and train it, this is what we mean when we say awareness is a continuous evolution, not a destination. So it takes an intentional daily practice of distinguishing what's real from what's just running on autopilot. Here's why this is so hard for most people. Nobody ever taught them that emotions carry information. They were taught to either express or suppress their emotions. If you express them, you're dramatic. If you suppress them, then you're strong. But neither one is reading. So what looks like defiance is often discomfort, what looks like laziness is often fear, and what looks like disrespect is often just an inability to regulate. And a child who grows up without those skills will do one of two things as an adult. They'll follow every feeling as a command. They let the worry spiral, let anger drive decisions, let fear determine what rooms they walk into, or they'll suppress everything and then wonder why they feel disconnected from themselves and everyone around them. The middle path, the one that almost no one teaches, is awareness. The ability to feel the emotion fully, trace it back to its source and ask, is this a signal or a noise? Is this pointing at something real, or is this a story my mind is generating? That question changes everything. You may have heard of signal versus noise before. Trainers like Tony Robbins have talked about it for years, but very few people have been trained to apply it to their own mind, their own emotional operating system, and even fewer were taught it as children, before their reactions became automatic, before following the noise became their default setting. And that's the window we work in at Upgrade Academy. Not just suppressing or expressing their emotions, but training kids to read them. Because reactions often create conflict, but reading creates space. And space is where influence lives. And a child who can distinguish signals from noise doesn't just get hijacked by their emotions, they get informed by them. And that skill will serve them in every relationship, every high-pressure moment, every decision they face for the rest of their life. Right now, your child is having emotional experiences every single day. Frustrations in the classroom, worry before a test, anger with a friend, fear of trying something new. Every single one of those emotions is carrying information though. But if nobody teaches them to read it, they'll spend their life reacting to the noise and missing the signal. And here's the key for parents. Your nervous system becomes their template. Your response becomes their future reflex. When you pause instead of react, you're not just diffusing a moment, you're installing a pattern. And the reactions that start as small moments in childhood become the patterns that define their adulthood. So the parent who explodes over small things, the professional who freezes under pressure, the adults who avoid every room that feels uncertain. It all started with an emotion that nobody ever taught them to read when they were a child. Your emotions are not your enemy. Your child's emotions are not their enemy. They are the most sophisticated feedback system in the human body, but feedback is only useful if you know how to read it. Teach your child the difference between a signal and a noise, and you give them something most adults spend decades trying to figure out. You give them the ability to feel everything and be controlled by nothing. Upgrade the code, the performance will follow. If this video shifted something for you, please share it with a parent who needs to hear it, because the earlier this conversation starts, the earlier a child gets their upgrade. Subscribe and follow us for more.